Hello. There's a few more people coming in. Okay, hello everybody. My name is David Whelan. I'm the CEO of Immersive VR Education, and I'm here today with David McDermott. He's our lead animator back in the company. We actually do hire other people who are not called David as well. So we're an Irish-based company. We started 3 years ago, and there's currently 24 of us based in our Irish office. But today, what we're going to talk about is virtual reality and how we use Blender to create some of our experiences on our education platform. So we're probably most well known for building the Apollo 11 virtual reality experience, where you become Neil Armstrong and you get to go to the moon and plant the flag. I'll show you a little trailer of that now in a moment. This year, we're releasing Titanic VR, where you get to dive on a very, very accurate version of the shipwreck. You get to explore that shipwreck in your own submersible, and you get to complete tasks. Later on, early next year, we're going to be releasing a short animation based on the sinking of Titanic, where you will be one of the survivors in Lifeboat 6, and it's based on real-life accounts, and again, you're experiencing it all in virtual reality. So we will be talking, obviously, quite a lot about Blender, but what I'm going to show you first is I'm just going to show you a short clip from Apollo 11. So if you can turn down the lights and turn up the volume, please.
I believe that this nation should commit itself to achieving the goal before this decade is out of landing a man on the moon and returning him safely to the Earth. No single space project in this period will be more impressive to mankind or more important for the long-range exploration of space, and none will be so difficult or expensive to accomplish.
Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed.
Thank you. So that will kind of give you a little bit of flavor of what the Apollo 11 experience is like to see inside virtual reality. We made it very much like a concept album. I was very heavily influenced by Pink Floyd, The Wall, and Dark Side of the Moon. And when you're inside the experience, it's 45 minutes long. But we use all the real cockpit audio, and we've heightened the emotion with music. Here you can see me inside the Apollo 11, the lunar lander cockpit. And every dial and every switch is exactly accurate to what the astronauts would have seen. Even the moon surface outside the window is a photo mosaic that NASA created for the simulator. So every valley and crater you see is exactly what Neil would have seen back in the day. This model was created in Blender, and then we've imported it into Unity so people can view it inside a virtual reality experience. It's been very, very successful for us. Last year, it was one of the top-rated pieces of VR content globally. And as I said, this year we have some big releases coming. So with that, I'm going to pass you over to Dave, and he's going to talk a bit about VR production and how we use Blender.
There you go. Hello, thanks very much. So I'd like to talk about just specifically how we're using Blender in our whole development process. Blender has some really special and unique tools that aren't in other packages that made it particularly suited to VR development. So if you just have a look, we have storyboards, and we have what we call VR boards, and animatics in the development phase. And then in the pre-production, we have modeling, character creation, and then we made a character generator as well. and that was particularly for Titanic, but we'll give you more details to that later. And then in the animation section as well. So we used it for the character animation in Apollo, and also for the effects and simulations. So if we go on now. So first of all, for pre-production in the storyboarding. So I just want to say thank you to Antonio Vasquez and Joshua Long, and also Dalai Falento, because the two tools that they've developed is what made it possible for us to do the VR-specific pre-production phase, especially the VR add-on that Dalai has developed. And if anyone else is interested, or anyone else is doing VR development, I really encourage getting your hands on these tools and trying them out, because we found them really, really helpful and effective. Okay, go on to the next one. Okay, so this is a scene that we did it as a test at the very start of the project. And basically for the scene, you can see the three different sections there. You can see me acting out the characters on the top right and embarrassing myself. And on the top left, we have a traditional storyboard. And then underneath, we have the rough animation of the scene. But what we found was traditional storyboard methods weren't sufficient to plan the scene in VR, because we just don't have control anymore. I mean, the viewer can look, you can orient the viewer in a particular direction, but the tools that we have from a cinematic perspective just don't quite apply to VR. So we had to develop new techniques of planning, because if you think about it, like your storyboard would be your little window on the world, and the director in the past could place it where he liked, but we just don't have that anymore. So we had to find a new way to rapidly build a scene and to test it. Now, to go to the full animatic, building props and then animating a rough version of the scene is already very expensive. But something in between the storyboard and the animatic is what we came up with at the end. In the end. And what let us do it was the grease pencil. So here you can see in the video now, you can see me drawing the characters. I brought our temporary model of the Titanic into the scene, and then I start drawing the characters that we need for the storyboard straight into the scene with the grease pencil. And this is absolutely fantastic, because there are beginning to be packages that will let you create in VR, but there's nothing out there that has the maturity of the tools and the tool set that's available in Blender. And then once I created all the sketches of the characters to tell our story, I was able to drop them down into the scene here. And then straight away, using the VR add-on, you can view your scene in a head-mounted display. In this case, I was using Oculus. But the great thing about it is it gives you, straight away, it gives you a size relationship. And you can view the scene and you can judge much more clearly what aspects or what elements of your layout are going to grab your viewer's attention. And there's no other way of doing this, and I can do it all in one single package. This is an absolutely fantastic advantage, because otherwise, like I as an artist, I can sit down, start doing a storyboarding session in Blender, and then I can view it straight away. Otherwise, here's an example of just some simple animations I've done. I did a couple of frames of the characters, and then we dropped them all into the scene. But normally, in a more traditional production method, I'd have to either work myself in Unity, importing all the assets one by one, setting it all up again, essentially animating it twice. Or with Blender, I can do it all in the scene, view it instantly, and then I can show it to my director, and I can get sign off on a particular scene, or we can do a very quick iteration. And as many other people have mentioned in talks earlier, it's about fail fast and then get on with it and do your next iteration. And this has really contributed to helping us try things, try them out, find out what works, and then move on to the next iteration of the scene to try and get the best results we can. And it's really helping us explore this new medium of VR and how storytelling will unfold. So if we go on to the next one now. So just to recap again, the single integrated tool was probably the best thing, and being able to do it just as an artist, because I know a lot of people in game development, especially, it can be very frustrating for an artist when you're developing all the content, and then you have to wait on the next person in line. If you're not skilled yourself in working with engines or importing all your content, you have to rely then on a programmer who might be busy on something else, or you have to assign time, and it becomes more complicated. But Blender, having it all in one package, really empowers the creator to try out ideas super fast. Yeah, and also it really makes it a much more efficient production as well, because you can try things out at the storyboard stage that otherwise you would have had to wait to a lot longer in your production, and could possibly cost you a lot more as well if you're unable to fix them. But anyway, on to the modeling. Here's an example of some of the models that were created by our modeler, Mario Matovina. And he's done all interiors and props for the above-water Titanic scenes. This is the Marconi room. And here's a first-class room that you'll be able to explore on Titanic. And here's the destroyed engines again. So it's just looping through. And that's the boilers from the Titanic. And there they are as you explore them in the sunken wreck, which will be out in a couple of weeks, the sunken wreck part. OK, on to the next section, of character creation. So the main part of our animated film, or the VR animated story part of our game, is you're going to experience the sinking of the Titanic on the deck there as the ship is going down. So one of the biggest challenges was characters. We need a massive amount of characters in the scene. But at the same time, naturally, you have a particular budget to achieve what you want to achieve. So what we did was we broke the characters down into 3 different sections. So we have the leading role characters, the supporting role characters, and then we have the BG characters, or the background characters. And so for the leading characters, well, for all the characters, the starting point for us was to scan our actors. And this is just an example of us, our scanning process, where we use photogrammetry to record the actors. And after we've done the photo session, what we end up with is a point cloud. And then we convert that to a mesh with a texture on it. But the real problem was volume. We scanned over 90 people, or 90 actors, to be parts in our Titanic drama. But this, as you can imagine, is an incredibly large volume. So we had to work really smart to be able to produce it as a medium-sized studio. And what we did was, we decided for our character system, we decided that we wanted to get the best value for all the work we were going to do. So we made the decision to use one single mesh that we would deform for every character. And in this way, as you can see, the 2 different people on the left and on the right are 2 examples of the characters that we've made. And then in the middle, you can see we're blending between them. And then we use that later for our character system, and we'll show you. So for the lead characters, we have 2 very talented character artists, Jonathan and Harley. And here's an example of, on the left-hand side, you can see photographs from the scanning session. And then on the right-hand side, you can see the final sculpted digital avatars there that are in the game. So these are like the top quality guys, the heroes of the story. And they work in ZBrush, and they do the high detail sculpt for that. And I think it's a testament to Blender that it plays so nicely with so many other packages. It's a very friendly, pleasant package to work with. And anyway, so we've integrated other packages well into our workflow. So the next level was the medium detail characters, or the supporting characters. So for the high detail characters, we went from the character scan. That was brought, and then we hand that over to the character artists. Then for the supporting characters, if I had have told our 2 character artists, by the way, you're going to have to sculpt 90-plus heads, they may have had a mental breakdown of some sort in the timelines that we have. So what we did was we used Blender to do the supporting characters. And the way the supporting characters work is we will go straight from the scan data, and we'd retopologize the scan, And then in Blender, we'll retouch just the diffuse layer. So we're only correcting the diffuse layers of the character. So obviously it's not as high detail as the lead characters, but it's perfect for what we need for the supporting characters, because in the experience, the supporting characters will never get that close to you. So it's a perfect and really, really time-effective way of working and developing the characters. So here you can see this is just the diffuse layer, and it was taken from, we actually got our actor in a costume and scanned the costume, and then retopologized it in Blender. And then onto the BG characters, or the background characters. So we have two sources of data that we can draw on. We have the high detail character sculpts, and then we have the library of medium detail characters or supporting characters. And they all share the same geometry. So what we can do is we can mix them all as blend shapes. And we came up with, to create the many hundreds of background characters we need for the game, because nearly every scene we have, there's people walking around in the background. I took all the characters and all the diffuse textures of the characters, and I built a character generator. So down on the bottom right there, you can see I have a load of bones in the scene that are connected to drivers, and the drivers are connected to the morph shapes on our one geometry. And then in the materials there, you can see we have all the diffuse textures as well, are all connected and driven by the same driven keys. And that way you're able to adjust the eye color, the geometry and the shape you can mix between any of the people. And you can also mix the textures as well. And then when you're happy with the result you have, you simply save out an OBJ and then bake the texture. And you end up with this. So we have, for the background characters that we'll have appearing in the scene, we're able to generate these characters. And obviously they're not to the same level of our heroes in the story. But for what we need for extras to stand in the background, it's perfectly adequate. And it's a very time and cost-effective way of generating all these human assets that we need. So yeah, so that was that's the way we've broken it down anyway. And then onto the last section here of animation. So for animation, for Apollo, we used a motion capture suit, and here's you can see one of the animators there, Nick, is in the suit, and we captured the performance there, and you can see in a moment. There you go. There's the actors. There's the astronauts doing a dance of a sort. Yes, so we took this data and we were able to export it as either FBX or BVH, and then we were able to bring that into Blender. And now it did pose a few problems because we use various different techniques to bring the animation in. In some cases, I just bring the animation straight in as an FBX and then use constraints to try and transfer the information over to the character rig. In other cases, I used the Blender mocap plugin, and I was able to bring in and transfer the data in that way. And then also in another case as well, I got a programmer to modify the MakeWalk plugin to try and add in the finger joints. And I used the MakeWalk plugin as well to be able to transfer the motion in. Not only that, at the time, we were using, it was a few versions ago, and so there were some particular challenges that we had animating the scenes. Because it's a VR experience, it's one continual take. So that has its own particular challenges. So I have to animate one continual animation. And I think the longest scene we had was maybe 10,000 frames. Now things have changed, I have to say, but at the time, with the version of Blender, with 10,000 frames, it really started to feel the weight of the data that was being put through it. And as you can see here, when I recorded the video, I hid the graph editor and also the timeline as well. And that actually speeds up the playback in the viewport because it doesn't have to draw all the extra curves as well. But in the end, anyway, I'm very, very happy to say that the 2.79 is a massive improvement in terms of viewport performance and the speed, and it's making it much easier for us to work creating animations. And here you can see this is from the Apollo landing scene where they're descending to the moon, and he's diligently reading all the dials and working the controls to safely land the lunar module. And that's basically it. So these are the different ways that we're using Blender at the moment, but we're really looking forward to 2.8 and the new tools that are coming in, because already with the demos I've seen, the new grease pencil tool is going to be fantastically useful for visualization in Blender in VR. And I'm really, really looking forward to Eevee as well. It's our hope that once the 2.8 comes out, we're going to extend the character generator and add in normal maps and be able to have a real-time preview and everything. And we're very excited about the potential for Blender going ahead in VR development. Definitely, if anyone is interested in VR development or has any particular questions about how we're using it, please come up to me, have a chat, and I'd be delighted to go through anything you might have questions about after the talk. So I'm going to hand back to David now, and he's going to talk a bit about Engage.
Thanks, Dave. Okay, so what we're also developing in the background, like Apollo 11 and Titanic, we call these our showcase experiences. And as a company, these showcase experiences really attract the right type of talent to us, but we're also building a platform, and the platform is called Engage. And what Engage allows you to do is any educator can teach any subject to anybody else in the world in a virtual environment. And why even teach class in a classroom? So if you want to teach marine biology, why not teach that on the seabed and have a whale swim through the center of the class? So it's a lot more engaging. And the platform, when you're inside, you have a VR headset and hand controllers. So you can see we have an avatar here, and we only have 3 points of data. So we're only tracking the person's head and their hands, and then we use an IK system to extrapolate how the people should move in a virtual space. But the Engage platform also allows you to create your own content. So there is an invitation to everybody here. If you want to use the Engage platform, it's completely free to use. You can go in, you can have meetings, you can have whiteboard sessions. You can also record a presentation inside Engage, and you can drop in any FBX files that you want. So if you're teaching animation to somebody, you can bring in that file into Engage, and it can appear to the person in front of you in virtual reality. It's a fully networked environment. Here you can see that's me up in the corner in the real world, and this is my VR avatar in the Engage platform. And you can see the tracking is one-to-one, so it's a very intuitive system to use. And there's a virtual reality tablet. This is how I drop in models. So if you have a model in FBX format with an animation, you can drop it in. So it makes your presentations very, very engaging. And you can have up to 35 people in the same room at the same time. But if you are a really good presenter and you record one of your presentations, you can upload that to the platform. So you don't even have to be in the platform live. Somebody can go in and download that presentation and watch it as if it was happening live again. Sorry, before I go on to that, because we have been talking about Titanic quite a bit, if you could just drop the lights, please. This is the trailer that we used for our Kickstarter about a year ago. Again, this is just really a tease. It doesn't really show the animation, but it'll give you a feel for what Titanic is all about.
See this huge thing with 4 funnels. I thought she was something out of the ordinary, my gosh. She was the last word in luxury. All her public rooms were absolutely amazing. All the woodwork was beautifully carved, and she had everything that you could think of. She was a beautiful ship. We had no lifeboat drills, and the list of lifeboats, I believe, was put up in the galley about the day that we struck an iceberg. Nobody knew where their boats were. Lifeboats were a thing of they weren't necessary. You see, we were on a ship that was unsinkable.
Okay. So, so that's just to give you a little feel for what Titanic is all about. That was a real survivor, you could hear in the audio. We've done a deal with BBC. They've interviewed a lot of survivors over the years. Obviously, they're all passed away now, but when you're exploring the ship, you're going to hear the real stories from the real survivors themselves. What I am going to finish on, this is just a short video clip. So when we released Apollo 11, a demo of it 2 years ago, we had a Kickstarter campaign, and with virtual reality, a lot of people talk about empathy and presence. And this guy, I could talk for hours and hours and hours about virtual reality, but this guy really explains what it's like to be inside virtual reality and to view animations and to feel like you're taking part in a real event. So I'm just going to play this clip.
So, yeah, that was the end of the demo. I'm recording this end part because unfortunately my webcam stopped at the end there. But I'm just gonna pretty much say what I said there, and that this was absolutely amazing. Like, this was just incredible. It makes me so happy that my Rift right here can make me feel such powerful emotions from something that wasn't even real. Can you imagine, like, if you were back in high school and you were in your science class and you started talking about the Apollo missions, and instead of going through a long lecture about it, they gave you a VR headset and put you in this? How much more is that able to teach you than just someone sitting up there talking about it? Not that it's a bad thing, but this is just so much more powerful. I felt like I was in that space shuttle with Buzz Aldrin, Neil Armstrong, and Michael Collins. That was... I'm not crying, but I feel like I want to, because that's all I can say about it. It was just amazing, and these guys did a fantastic job on it. And I'm definitely gonna be backing them a lot now, because this needs to happen. This needs to become a thing. Virtual reality education, things like this need to become a thing.
So he actually goes talking for another 15 minutes if you look him up on YouTube. So I just cut it down there. But it's our company's belief that education should not be an aspiration. It's a right of every human being. And with the Engage platform, we're hoping that we can provide education to those who can't afford to go to brick and mortar institutes. And that's the goal of the company. So as I did show in the previous slide, if there is anybody looking for work and willing to move to Ireland, we'd be happy to talk to you. Thanks very much.